So what we're looking at now is the area of Masantol and Macabebe in Pampanga. And this is an area that's that's covered in fish ponds and shrimp ponds and a few agricultural fields. We're zooming in now on the mouth of the Pampanga River, and this is the mouth of the river that leads into the Manila Bay. Well, actually to the Pampanga Bay, which is part of the Manila Bay. And here we are traveling northward up the Pampanga River, and on both sides of the river, a little bit away from the banks, you can see large dikes with roads on the dikes. These were built by the Japanese on old mounds that existed on these river banks. And these dikes are important during the flooding season, because a lot of the fishermen and the farmers in this area take refuge on the dikes when the area gets flooded, which is just about every rainy season. Now you can see a lot of the smaller dikes also in this picture, in this imagery, and these smaller dikes are used to create fish ponds and shrimp ponds, and also formerly rice fields. Now, there's not too much rice grown here now because of the eruption of Mount Pinatubo, which sent a lot of lahar down into this area and brought the saltwater level up a lot farther north than it used to be. So at one time there was a lot of rice farming going on in this area, but presently it's mostly fishing, fish ponds actually, fishing and shrimp ponds, and some agriculture. There's some agriculture also practiced in this area. And the river, the Pampanga River, is the main waterway for the province of Pampanga on the island of Luzon in the Philippines. This river it actually originates up in the mountains north of Pampanga. And okay, now we're coming up to an area known as Malauli. Now in the old days, this was the part of the river that was where the salt water met the fresh water. And it was around here that the fish ponds on one side would meet the rice fields on the other side, where you would have the fresh water. The fish ponds were for raising saltwater fish and shrimp, and of course on the freshwater side you would have the rice farming. But a lot of the rice farms after the Pinatubo eruption were converted into fish and shrimp ponds. And this whole area is very well irrigated. It's a former swamp. It's a mangrove swamp that was basically cleared for agriculture using dikes long ago. And the area north of here, the northern part of Pampanga, is where a lot of the nutrients, a lot of the silt would flow. That area was not cultivated. It was left as an open forest, and really as a forest that provided all the silt and the nutrients for this agricultural area downstream. Now here you can see the dikes on both sides of the river become very wide, and there's actually houses and buildings, there's schools built on both dikes. And again, these are very important during the flooding periods, especially for the farmers that live out in the rural areas. Now we're coming close to the town of Masantol. It's an ancient port town. That's where my paternal family clan comes from. And here we are. Here's the confluence of the Pampanga River with an old canal built by the Japanese during World War II. And right at that confluence is where Musantol town starts. And there's a port area here. People from the town, a lot of the fishermen will go down the river to the Manila Bay to catch fish and then bring them back up to sell them in the fish markets of Musantol. Now, if you look at the north of Musantol, you can see the town of Macabebe, where a lot of my relatives, including my mom's matrilineal side, come from. It's it's all Macabebe is mainly built along a river, so it has sort of an undulating shape. Now we're sort of zooming in here to show just how this area is laid out with a lot of rivers and canals and creeks. You can see the houses built on dikes, and there's just a lot of waterways here, and it's sort of like a maze. There's so many waterways, and the expert boat people here, the people who navigate and pilot the boats, they're some of the only people who know really how to get around some of these waterways. Okay, and here's again the long shot of Musantol and Macabebe, and now I'm zooming out. Okay, now we're going north a bit to the northern part of Pampanga, and here's Mount Pinatubo in the west, and to the east, Mount Arayat. And this is where my mom's father's side comes from Angeles City, between Mount Pinatubo and Arayat, and here's the whole Angeles City and Clark Air Base area, and there's Clark Field. The actual airfield used to be Clark Air Force Base. This is where I was born, actually, and it's now a international airport. And here's Mount Pinatubo, the crater lake that famously erupted in 1991. That's to the west. And then back here to the east is Mount Arayat, which has lost a lot of forest on the outer boundaries of the mountain, but the top of the mountain is still fairly well forested. And my mom's side, the Consencos, come from this area. And here's the whole Pinatubo, Zambales, and Pampanga area, two provinces side by side, where my ancestors come from. And now zooming back down into the Musantol Macabebe area, we can see here's a little clip of actually a boat ride along the river in the town of Pampanga. This is still within the sort of the limits of the town rather than the rural areas, and it's shows you how the whole area is just really dependent on these waterways. Everything's built sort of like right on the edge of the riverbank, as it was in the old days. It's been slightly urbanized, but not much. It's sort of a depressed area, surviving mainly through fisheries and agriculture. And some fishing. People fish in the river, and they also go down to the Manila Bay again to catch fish in the ocean. And there are a lot of old earthworks here, dikes, as well as modern types of engineering to control the waterways. And here's the more rural area of Musantol. And a lot of the canals and the channels here and the river banks are supported by bamboo retaining walls. And there's a lot of, out in this rural area, a lot of birds, a lot of wild birds, migratory birds can be seen in this area. And here's a shot of the Pelco Electric Cooperative in the area going down one of the corridors. This is a artificial corridor, sort of like the street or an avenue, a water street or water avenue in the water town of Musantol. This is how a lot of people get along. You can also walk along the dikes, but the faster way to get around is by taking a boat, a canoe, a banca, and just traveling down these waterways. Well, here's a picture of some of these bamboo retaining walls that are used on the fish ponds, and you can also see the fish gates here. Here's a pond, a fish pond with a canal and some fish gates. Another picture of a fish gate. Now these fish ponds and shrimp ponds are very important. Here's some gates and bamboo retaining walls, and here's one of the smaller types of dikes that are used to control the water. It also uses walkways, and you really have to know what you're doing to get around on these dikes, because you can easily get lost. Now here's a long shot again of the Muckababy, Musson-Toal area. There's Musson-Toal here, and then just north of it is Muckababy, right up here, and then we'll zoom in. This is where my father's side, all my great-grandparents on my father's side are from the Musson-Toal area. Now, my mom's side, my mother's her maternal grandparents are from Muckababy. So I have a lot of ancestry right from this area. And then if we go north, my mother's paternal grandparents are from Angeles City, again, in northern Pampanga. So all four of my, here it is up here, all 8 of my great-grandparents are from the Pampanga region. And I'll zoom in here to the Angeles City. Here's the Holy Angel University. It's the largest university in Angeles City. And we'll use the 360 feature to zoom in on that to the university. All these images are from Google Earth. And here's Angeles University. It's an important university for the study of the local culture in Pampanga, the Kapampangan culture, which is, it's one of the older cultures. A very politically important area in the pre-colonial times. And we're zooming back out again to a wide shot of Angeles, and to the west again is the what used to be Clark Air Force Base. It's now a economic zone with the Diestado Macapagal International Airport located within that economic zone. And again, this is where I was born, and my mother's side, of course, is from Angeles City, and the area has been developed pretty well. And here's the old Clark Air Base Hospital. That's exactly where I was born. And then to the north of it is a river there with a lahar from Mount Pinatubo.